Superfly. While Nicky Barnes was the most prominent Harlem gangster to turn informant during the 1970s, he may not be the biggest one. Consider Frank Lucas, another larger-than-life Harlem drug lord who liked to call himself Superfly. In 1978, Lucas faced several decades in prison when he decided to violate the code of the streets and give authorities a detailed look at how the drug trade worked. Lucas has been telling us everything about his operation from day one to now, said a source close to the investigation of Lucas's drug empire. A lot of stuff was known to law enforcement, but a lot is new. We couldn't provide some of it before, but Lucas, has agreed to testify everywhere he has to. Later, newspapers would report that Superfly snitched on more than 100 people. Lucas, now in his late 70s and living out his retirement in the Witness Protection Program, somewhere in the eastern United States, denied that he snitched on anybody. "I wasn't a witness for the government," Lucas bellowed. "I don't care what the newspapers said. I never took the stand for anybody." Associates of Frank Lucas, who were involved in the drug trade in the late 1960s to the mid-1970s, begged to disagree. Take, for instance, Leslie Ike Atkinson, a former career Army Master Sergeant, whom the DEA dubbed Sergeant Smack. Atkinson forged a sophisticated heroin pipeline that extended from the poppy fields of the Golden Triangle region of Southeast Asia to the U.S. and distributed an ultra-pure type of heroin known as China White. Based in Bangkok, the network used U.S. Army post offices, U.S. Air Force transport planes, and retired and active servicemen, mainly African American, to move the contraband to Fort Bragg, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and other U.S. military connection points. Today, Atkinson, who has spent the past 30 years in prison, is incarcerated in the federal prison facility at Butner, North Carolina. At 81 years of age and near release, Atkinson is confined in the prison's low-risk section. On a bright, warm June morning, we sat down in a cubicle for an interview under the watchful eye of the deputy warden. Retired DEA agents who investigated Atkinson in the 1970s cautioned that Sergeant Smack was a real smooth charmer, good at manipulating a situation. When he operated as Sergeant Smack, Atkinson wore a big afro, but today, his hair is short-cropped and flecked with gray. Dressed in a light brown prison jumpsuit, he retains much of his military bearing, although he walks with a shuffle, the result of many years living in confined quarters. Atkinson is indeed engaging, and I listened as he caressed the conversation with a smooth tone, until the subject of Frank Lucas popped up. "I woke up one morning about 20 years after I went to jail, and it hit me," Atkinson recalled, his voice rising. "I realized why Frank had come to Bangkok, to get information that would help put me behind bars." Frank Lucas made his legend in the drug trade by purporting to be the first African-American drug lord to break with La Cosa Nostra and develop the Southeast Asia pipeline. The former Harlem gangster promoted himself, and was promoted in the media, as a swashbuckling drug lord who had the foresight and nerve to transform the drug trade by going to Bangkok on his own and connect with a shadowy Chinese man. His story is filled with tales of unsolved gangland killings, coffins, and perhaps corpses, carrying heroin from the killing fields of Vietnam to the streets of America. A drug empire run from behind prison bars, a controversial career as an informant, and an ambiguous relationship with drug lords. Born in LaGrange, North Carolina, Lucas arrived in Harlem at age 17 and immediately began leaving his imprint on the community. All of what we know about Superfly's pre-Harlem formative years comes from his recollections. Later, much of what the authorities learned about Superfly's role in the drug trade came through the gangster's lips. Lucas's account of how he left North Carolina at a young age could be the absorbing first chapter of a best-selling biography or the dramatic opening scene of a Hollywood thriller. The legend begins in rural North Carolina in the dark days of segregation, when the Ku Klux Klan came to Lucas's house looking for his cousin, Obadiah Jones. The Klan was pissed, as Lucas told the story, because Obadiah had made eyes at a white girl. Young Lucas hid and watched as the Klan took Obadiah outside, tied his arms up, and blew his head off with a shotgun. I ran out into the woods to hide, Lucas told reporter William Kleinknecht in 2003. My father couldn't find me for hours. That was the day I told myself that nobody was ever going to do anything to me. Nobody was ever going to push me around. And they haven't to this day. According to Lucas, the incident triggered his hatred for the status quo and launched his life of crime. While still barely a teenager, he began the peripatetic existence that took him to Wilson, North Carolina, where he ran into trouble. I was going with a white girl named Ann, who was the boss's daughter, Lucas recalled. The boss got mad at me. We were supposed to get paid every 2 weeks, but he wouldn't pay me. So I burned the warehouse down. I had to run. I arrived in Harlem with no money. Nothing. The kid did not know anybody in Harlem and used his wits to survive. He spent his first year and a half as a petty crook, robbing people by using intimidation. He also hustled pool. And a chance meeting with Bumpy Johnson in a Harlem pool hall boosted his criminal career. Harlem's original gangster bet on Lucas in a pool game against another hustler named Ice Pick and won $1,000. It was the beginning of a close relationship, which Lucas has said may have saved his life. He had robbed a gambling establishment and some nasty gangsters were looking for him, but Bumpy had the power to make them back off. If it weren't for Bumpy, I would be dead, Lucas recalled. There was a contract out on me, but Bumpy told everybody, don't mess with him, Lucas boasted. Bumpy didn't like me. He loved me. The two gangsters forged a bond, and Lucas went to work for his mentor. One time, though, the kid screwed up. He told me to go and sell a truckload of liquor for him, Lucas recalled. I did, but blew the money in a card game before I could give it to Bumpy. He didn't kill me. A defining moment for the young gangster came when he ran into a street tough named Tango, a powerful 6'5", 270-pound street bully who was known to have killed men with his bare hands. Tango so terrorized the streets of Harlem that when he borrowed money from people, they did nothing when he refused to pay them back. While others in Harlem feared Tango, Lucas looked for a chance to provoke a confrontation with the bully. I was really a nobody on the streets, Lucas recalled. I knew that if I took down Tango, many people would be thankful and my reputation would soar. Lucas gave Tango $5,000 worth of merchandise as a loan, knowing that the street bully would stiff him. Lucas waited about a week and then went to Tango to get his money back. But Tango just laughed and brushed him off. When Lucas persisted, even going to see Tango twice in one day, Tango blew up and went into his bully mode, telling Lucas what he was going to do to his mom and then to him. I told Tango, a dead man has a right to say anything he wants, Lucas recalled. Let me know when you are through. Enraged, Tango lunged at the young upstart. Lucas pulled out a gun and shot him 4 times. The boy didn't have any head, Lucas later explained. That was my initiation fee into taking over completely down here, because I killed the baddest motherfucker, not just in Harlem, but in the world. According to Lucas, after he took down Tango, he could put $1 million in a bag on 116th Street by the subway and nobody would have fucking touched it. Lucas's mentor, Bumpy Johnson, died of a heart attack in 1968. But by then, Lucas was making big bucks peddling drugs from 116th Street and 8th Avenue, the hub Pee Wee Kirkland had said was the epicenter of the Harlem drug trade. Near the end of his life, Bumpy wanted to get out of the drug trade, but Frank was looking to get into it as his own man, recalled Sterling Johnson, a U.S. District Court judge in the Eastern District of New York who, as a special prosecutor in the 1970s and 80s, was involved with the Lucas investigation.
For more of these fascinating stories and true crimes, subscribe to Charles Arnis World. Thanks for watching.
Substance abuse was unchecked. "I was a young man completely out of control," he said. One night in mid-November 1989, he was filming a pair of videos in East Los Angeles, Beautiful but Deadly and The Formula. In the latter, Easy and Dre hold rapper tryouts with wannabes with names like MC Mallet and New Kids in the Hood. But Dre isn't satisfied until, in a haze, he imagines crafting his perfect rapper in the lab, DOC. Filming 2 videos at the same time was a long, arduous process. DOC drank and smoked weed practically all day, running on fumes that night when he finally got into his car to make the long drive to his Agoura Hills home, westbound on the 101. He fell asleep and his car spun out, throwing him through the back window. His car collided with a tree. Once the medics arrived, they couldn't sedate him because they didn't know what drugs he had in his system, he said. Still intoxicated, he fought back as they tried to insert a breathing tube, scarring his larynx. DOC was taken to Kaiser Hospital and then Cedars-Sinai. His hospital bills came to more than $60,000, Jerry Heller wrote, which Easy paid for out of his own pocket. DOC would make a full recovery, but for one very serious problem.
For more of these fascinating stories and true crimes, subscribe to Charles Arnis World. Thanks for watching.